What is the one coach on the message board you don't want to see Nick Saban replaced with? You don't want to see Alabama hired. So we'll kind of do it backwards. What the H?
What the? What was he thinking?
Release the hounds.
The Dave Hooker Show.
Keep cool.
A presentation of OffTheHookSports.com.
Who's the coach you absolutely do not want to see Alabama hire? I believe, and he's not going to be a candidate, but I believe that the list begins and ends with one name, because there is one bona fide national championship coach that you could talk into getting on the sidelines. I know he is not a great person, but Urban Meyer is the one guy that if you're Auburn fan, tomorrow you woke up or you saw the news yesterday that Kiffin was gone and you're Auburn fan and you're like, yay, this is great. And if they hire Urban Meyer tomorrow, Auburn fans like, well, holy bleep. That's exactly going to be the response. Other than that, it's a significant step down. It's a huge step down. It would even be a step down with Meyer. But other than that, it's a monstrous step down.
Man, could you the quality of character, the quality of character in Alabama, if you had Urban Meyer and Hugh Freeze coaching at the two schools down there, like, and I'm not, I character, who cares? It's coaches. They're all snakes to a certain degree. They're all a little bit shady, but like Urban Meyer at Alabama and Hugh Freeze at Auburn, oh my gosh. You don't want that. But Dave, I want to be honest with you though. The only reason I might disagree, I think Urban might have a little bit of trouble recruiting nowadays, because Urban has left not just one school on fire. He left two schools on fire and kind of in disgrace to a certain degree. It's not like he was forced out in disgrace, but he was kind of a disgraced coach when he left Florida and Ohio State, because in both instances, he just gave a middle finger to any morals whatsoever with the program. He did not care that he was covering up for a woman beater on his staff at Ohio State, and he did not care that he had the worst discipline possible at Florida. And I think if he took another college job, I think a lot of parents would. You don't think that'd be used against him? You don't think that'd be used against him?
What's a lot? 10%. Here's the thing about it. We talk about reputation meaning a lot, and in recruiting, it does mean a lot, but it also. It's like riding a bike. It's a set of skills. It's following up with people. It's having good interpersonal communications. So that's not going to go away. So if you were to say they're going to remember what a bad dude he has been at times, and he certainly has, I could offset that by saying you could point at a Tim Tebow, who is a great guy, or you could point at a championship to tell a young man that you're going to win championships with me. So I think that could be played either way. But but I ask you this question, is there anybody else that would just scare? And I'm seriously just throwing this out there. I cannot think of another name that would scare the rest of the college football world.
I said it already. Lane Kiffin. Lane Kiffin would scare the hell out of me if I were anywhere. If Lane Kiffin were at Alabama, I think he'd win yesterday. By the way, we have to address this because we haven't mentioned the name. Dabo Swinney wouldn't scare me, and he's not going to Alabama. And those two things I can say straight up front. Alabama wouldn't call him. He wouldn't take the job, and he wouldn't scare me if he went. If I were a rival
Dabo Swinney takes that job, here's my prediction. It's because a lot of people said no, just like in the Southern California Lane Kiffin marriage. That will be my prediction. If for some reason it gets to Dabo and he's announced as the head coach like next Wednesday, then a lot of people said no in that week.
What if? Because here's one. Because I don't think he wanted to be fired. I don't think he wanted to leave. What if Pete Carroll took the job? You think Pete Carroll will go back to college?
That was another one. Uber motivated. We are talking about guys in their 70s, though. Would he want to do that? I also thought about that name, and I think the NCAA, if they have any power, would utilize all that they can to keep him out, because he was the ultimate of thumbing your nose at the NCAA. I'm going to break your rules, and then I'm going to go off to the NFL, and you can't do anything to me about it, right? And he was.
Yes.
Is there anybody worse than him?
I mean, again, yes, the guy at Auburn who also created massive violations and should have gotten a longer show calls than he got, who is now coaching at Auburn.
Well,
And-
no, that's
And I'm not
true.
talking about Bruce Pearl, by the way.
But just to go, but to have the ability to go to the NFL and not get any sort of penalty whatsoever.
That was a bad look because he basically set the USC program on fire.
Not if you're Pete Carroll's wife.
Yeah.
That was a pretty good look. You won a national championship, you built this dynasty, and then you went off to the NFL and you didn't get in any trouble for cheating.
That's true. I don't think Kalen DeBoer is that good of a coach. I think Washington just hit lightning in a bottle this year, kind of like Sonny Dykes at TCU last year. I think they were lucky, but I think they're going to be on the list. And I think Tennessee fans should want Kalen DeBoer at Alabama because I think he would fail miserably.
I don't know. I don't know if he's that good or not, but I'll tell you this: if you're Alabama and you've had the run that you've had under Nick Saban, I don't think it's time to go hiring a coach that had basically a really good 1-year run with a special quarterback. Yeah, I think that's not the guy.
Semi-special. I don't think he's that special, but
yeah, I mean, but a great run. That's not. He hasn't done enough, in my opinion, anywhere close to some of the other names that you could go out there. So one, of course, is Dabo Swinney. I'm not going to rule out that he up and says yes. I mean, this is his dream job. I feel like that he's been very disrespected lately at Clemson. I mean, I'm not going to rule out that he would up and bounce.
That's a good point. So I said he would he would stay because I was saying that Clemson is in the ACC and it's such an easy road in the ACC compared to the SEC. But then I thought about it. Does that matter in a 12-team playoff, Dave? Because 12-team playoff, you go it doesn't really matter how easy the road is anymore, honestly. So, I'm talking myself into maybe Dabo would go to Alabama. Now, I think Alabama is so we play defense and running football. They don't want creative offenses at Alabama. I guarantee you that's how they're thinking.
I don't think Dabo Swinney wants anything too creative. I think he wants I think he's an easiest path guy, don't you?
But Dabo likes the spread offense, and his fingerprints are all over the spread offense. I don't think Alabama wants the spread offense there. I think Alabama the Bear Bryant, Nick Saban legacy is defense, defense, defense. Even Gene Stallings was a defensive guy. Which because when Tennessee was better than Alabama in the early 90s but kept losing, they could not figure out that defense at all during that time period.
If you can call Mike Norvell at a program that was competing for a championship and call him and say, leave, come coach this program, then you're one heck of an athletic department. That's their hire.
I'm a little less high on Mike Norvell than you are. I'm just going to say that. He does have a good offensive mind, and I'm going to give him some credit for that.
And he has leverage. If you can call and hire him away, that shows how strong you are as an athletic department.
That is true, but we just talked about Nick Saban, the motivator. And I'm going to be honest with you. It's a red flag to me that whatever you think of whether or not Florida State was trying to show up college football, and maybe they were, but it speaks to me that you basically allowed your players to just quit in the bowl game, to just quit their bowl game and not even show up. And it's one thing if you couldn't get them properly motivated, but Florida State didn't bother to play that game. And doesn't that speak to you as a coach that you couldn't get them at least somewhat motivated to play that game?
It may have 20 years ago, not nowadays. I mean, I see where you're going. It just really doesn't affect me as much as it used to. Herald Group Security Solutions, they can make your workplace safer, also your children's school safer. We're in private schools right now. Want to get in public schools, we'll get those laws changed. HeraldGRP.com. We're talking about former military personnel that are highly trained, do extractions. They can make sure your workplace or children's school is safer. That's HeraldGRP.com, Herald Group Security Solutions. All that being said, who do you ultimately want it to be? You're the guy in charge of college football. Who do you want it to be? Who do you want Alabama to hire to replace the great Nick Saban? Who does Caleb Calhoun want it to be?
Well, as the person I run college football, and I approach it this, if I were to run it, I would approach it the same way I approach it as a media person, which is what's best for me and what gives me the most to talk about. So I'm sticking with Lane Kiffin. I want Lane Kiffin in Tuscaloosa.
It's not even close, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, Papa J. We tried. We slayed it today. Yeah, it's not even close. It's Lane Kiffin, everybody. That's who we're on board for. Lane to Tuscaloosa.